This episode of Crucible Radio has been brought to you by Void Fang Investments. Die, throw grenades, repeat. Die, throw grenades, repeat.
Hey there, Swain Stash. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, birds?
I'm great. Bones, how are you?
I'm great too.
I was kind of doing a Tony the Tiger thing.
Great.
Thank you, Swain.
Doing a hyper-aggressive podcast host that is excited about being on Crucible Radio, the podcast for all things Destiny PvP.
That's right.
We give advice, we give tips, we give out Red Bull codes that we used to have. I'm making a good sell here. Everyone wants to tune in.
It's the hard sell at the top.
Right, but we also bring amazing interviews from people who work at the creators of Destiny, and that's coming up in a little while. First of all, guys, how was our week in Destiny?
Well, I can say that the main part of my week in Destiny took place at Bungie Studios. It involved my good friends Bones_CR and Swainstash_CR.
That's us?
Yep.
Hey, me.
It was incredible. Bungie invited us to come visit their studio, flew up there, got to meet each other in person for the first time.
Yep.
That was cool. Find out, who's tall that you haven't met before. You never know who's tall. And then we got to go to Bungie. It was freaking amazing.
It happened.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time eating. Just like moving from meal to meal.
Yeah, meal to meal. We finished. We went and had breakfast with Noosk, and then we went from breakfast with Noosk immediately to lunch at a restaurant with Noosk and others.
I mean, like literally the next time we were sitting down was at a different table in a restaurant.
just relentless.
But there was also Trials this weekend, which we did get some time to play.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Trials. Let's do this. But we're coming back to this Bungie thing because, oh my God, have we got so much to talk about.
I was just figuring we could mention that at the top of the show, but just sort of say yeah, it was a good time. Nothing really to gain there, but we had fun.
No, we're definitely going to tell you that there is all sorts of crazy insider information and some extra fun interviews, and we're going to encourage you to stick around and listen to them. But first, let's talk about the first week of Trials.
Yes.
I think we all enjoyed it. I think I can speak for everyone when I say that Trials is so much more competitive and so much more fun because of it. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah. I really liked the matchmaking this time around. I mean, sometimes the beginning, it was just kind of like a warm-up. You kind of shake off the cobwebs, play a few teams that may not be at their best, but you were almost guaranteed to run into someone of your competitive level when you started hitting that 6th or 7th part of your passage. It just made everything sweaty.
It did. It was nice. I felt like previously with matchmaking, since it was just based off of connection, it was just chaotic, right? Like sometimes you go and you buy your boons and you come in and your first match you just get stomped and you're like, okay, I guess we start a new ticket. And there's other Trials tickets that I've played where it was just 7 easy matches in a row and you're like, okay, free lighthouse trip. That was fun. To have some predictability, but also to be able to kind of go into a situation and know that you're going to get matched up with people that are at your skill level is huge. Like that is kind of a first for Destiny.
Oh, yeah. I was definitely sweating. There was definitely some matches where it just felt like, no, this makes sense. These are 2 teams that are good and 2 teams that will not give up. We definitely had some great games that really came down to the wire. I actually have to give a shout out to Reddit user DT Huna. He sent me a message before one of our matchups, recognized us from Crucible Radio. It was awesome, said he was a fan, and we had the best match. They ended up winning. I am not even afraid to say that we lost. It was 4-4. The last round was just like supers everywhere, but it was so cool to just have like a perfectly even matchup where it was like, the best person is going to come out on top. There's no blowouts here, and they were totally respectful and awesome guys to play, so that was a ton of fun and just kind of made my weekend to have those great matches really frequently.
Yeah, we even had one where we came from behind. We were on stream on Friday night doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And the three of us came from behind. We were down 4-1. And then we just kind of like chained our supers together, got it going, got some team wipes, and we came back. And it's games like that made it like a step above just pub stomping and regular Crucible. Like a huge step above.
Definitely. And that's going to be a regular thing. If you guys want to follow me or Swain on Twitch, I'm Drybones81 with a Z, and he's Swain Stash. We will definitely be streaming some trials because that is our new favorite thing. But I want to talk about Bannerfall, strategies we felt worked, strategies we felt didn't work, or things that we saw a lot. What was our basic impression of that map?
I kind of have mixed feelings about Bannerfall. I mean, Bannerfall for real is a fantastic trials map. It's challenging and it's got a lot of variety. I think, one thing that kind of threw me at first is I was just so used to year one trials, and a lot of the maps, it's just about sprinting as fast as you can to the best situation so you can get the setup. And Bannerfall, you can do that. And if you're, a top 1% sniper who can really rely on your skills, that's absolutely the move to make. But what I found was that when I would go and it was like, all right, I'm going to book it to that outside top window and get in position and do all of that, that if I didn't have my teammates coming with me and I get into a 50-50 trade-off with another sniper who's either, on the other side of the courtyard or maybe down on the bottom by heavy, and I lost that engagement, it was like, oh, well, I just sprinted away from my team and died, and now they've got to come revive me while the other team has a pick. I think it just really solidified. Trials, more than anything else, is about the revives and learning to move around that map, but to do it in a way as a group that you can sort of cover each other if one of you goes down. That was a lesson that I definitely learned the hard way.
Wayne, you had a comment that I liked about the catwalks, which is sort of everyone's opening move in sixes, because everyone goes for that through the window snipes, and that kind of changed over the course of the ticket, right?
Yeah, I mean, I found that like almost guaranteed the first few passages of your ticket, you could actually go up to the catwalk. If you're quick, you can get there first. They'd be aiming down sights before the other team. You're almost guaranteed to pick. Like those first few teams, like I'm not guaranteed it because like every once in a while we would run into like a really tough team on the first passage, but it's almost guaranteed I would get a pick, and then I would be there for the revive snipe. It's almost like a free round. You would think that team would learn after the first one not to go to the catwalk, but they would do it again, and maybe by like the third or fourth they would get the idea to just stay away from it. But as soon as we got into the tougher rounds, that was off limits. You wouldn't even bother going up there. I would just like, oh, all right, well, I'm going to go down and find a different angle for this, because every team that we ran into that was like competitive and tough, they knew to hold that down, and they knew that like if you even went there, you were dead.
I think that's some good Crucible Radio advice that can apply universally for every weekend of trials. If something doesn't work in a round, do not do that opening. Do not run to that same spot. You've got to constantly throw off the other team. That is just something that needs to be universally applied to your rounds, which can be tough because, you play these maps all throughout the week and you have these habits and you run through those rat lanes, but you've got to switch it up or else that team is just going to read you like a book.
Don't put yourself out there at all. If you do die, you don't want your ghost to be like in the middle of a field or in the middle of like this catwalk with a perfect line of sight for the revive snipe. If you're going to die, you want to die behind something. You want to be able to die off to the side. That way your team can get the revive.
Yeah.
It is a sniper game. The Trials of Osiris is snipers, at least for now. And you should not give them the benefit of getting you in the right spot.
That was my final take on Bannerfall. And I was really happy that I actually got to say this to some of the guys that designed it. But Bannerfall is a map where if you have a sniper lane and you have a beat on a guy, you are really exposed. And if you have tons of cover, you can't see anyone. And that was just great. I could stay hidden as long as I wanted, but it would not get me anywhere. I had to take a risk. I had to push forward. And you have to make that move, especially if you get the first kill, or that revive is really easy. So it was a map that encouraged competition, and it was awesome.
One of the things I liked about the map was that it was just large enough that if you were trying to make a flank, you were off radar. So you can, like, that whole outside area by lower heavy and the back hallways and stuff. If you took it easy and you did your creeping and you like moved out that way and your team kind of distracted the other team kind of around the middle area to like B and stuff, you could just make your way around, and then all of a sudden you've got a perfect sight line to the entire other team just kind of like hanging out in their spawn area. There's lots of lanes like that.
That's another thing to apply at every opportunity, and it's something you got to figure out the first time you drop in for the weekend. But is there a spot on the map I can go where they can't tell where I am? Because that can be the best place to move to if you're the last man standing and you're trying to stage this big, awesome wrecking ball comeback. You've got to get to a spot where you can set up that they don't know where you are, so when they try to approach you, you're the one catching them off guard. And that was a really effective strategy for those high pressure moments. Overall, very good map, I thought. A lot of close games. Only 2 of them really came down to the capture point. It wasn't like people could wait them out. So if we see Bannerfall again, I'm going to be stoked.
I feel like all these new maps are going to play pretty well with Trials.
Definitely.
Buy your boons.
Oh, can we not?
Buy your boons.
Can we not?
I kind of...
Bones was trying to get away with this, but...
So, Bones, really, I just have to thank you. I have to thank you because... coming down to the end of that second ticket, I was getting a little shook. I definitely got put on tilt. And, tilt is real. I usually try and keep a pretty cool head, but I was getting shook. And I think if I was on that ticket with anyone else, I probably wouldn't have made it to the lighthouse. But old Bonesy, he came through. He helped clutch out some rounds. And in the end, me and Swain ended up going to the lighthouse. And Bones went and bought himself a new ticket because... You know, the funny thing was that you were the one telling us, dogging us to make sure that we bought our boons. And yet, somehow...
This segment...
didn't buy the boons.
I feel like this is a deja vu. When did this happen? The segment got out of control. I wanted to hide something embarrassing that I have done. This definitely has existed on a previous episode. Yeah.
Maybe we could make this like a recurring segment where you'd have to forget your boons once a week or so.
Learned from Bones' mistake segment.
Yeah. That's definitely good. Yeah, sure.
So one thing I could say that was really nice, I love the way that they're doing Trials rewards now. It used to just be you'd get some junky piece of armor, once every handful of matches. But this time coming through, we had gun drops. I had a 313 ghost shell drop. There was one round where we all got the scout rifle at the same time, and each one was 300 plus light, and each one had a different perk. Just to know that, even if you're not making it to the lighthouse, you still got a chance at getting some of these Trials weapons. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Of the new Trials weapons, what drops have you guys had so far? I mentioned the scout rifle, which I tried out, and I kind of got to admit, I do not like that scout rifle. It was not working for me.
I actually really like the scout rifle.
Fair enough.
I like the full auto. I like the way it feels, the scope. The scope kind of feels like a sniper scope, actually.
Yeah, it was kind of like the zoomy aspect of it and how much of the screen it cut off. I just, because of the very high rate of fire and the full auto, it almost kind of felt like, like an auto rifle. And I guess when I think of a scout, it's like, all right, I'm going to be pacing my shots. I'm going to be picking at the target. But with this one, it was just like I'm spewing bullets and I'm just trying to stay on the target as we engage. Not my kind of scout rifle, but I'm not saying it's a bad gun.
I also got the water star, which is the hand cannon.
How are you liking that one so far?
I played with it a little bit. I'm probably going to have to level it up fully to kind of get the feel for the whole gun as it is. You know how hand cannons are right now in this meta. It's not my thing, so I'm just gonna wait.
Yep, hold on to it. You never know. Hand cannons might have their day again. Well, so maybe sort of wrapping up on Trials. What's some advice? We all were getting back into Trials shape. For me, the realization was definitely that reses are so important. So stick with your teammates. Wear the fast revive exotics. They're kind of cheating, but if it's that easy to get a res, then you might as well make use of it, or at least have someone on your team making use of it. Swain, you had some good advice, but I don't know. What parting tips for our listeners do you guys have?
Kind of on the topic of revives, it was so crucial that we pushed when we got the first kill.
Yep.
And sometimes I say push, and I feel like my teammates or people hearing the show think I mean like that means put the pressure on and get aggressive and find that last dude. I mean push up. I mean move up, get 2 scopes, if not 3 scopes on that dead ghost. Make your way over there and start controlling that area of the map. One thing I noticed that really screwed us over in so many scenarios was one of us would get the early kill, a nice first blood medal, and then nothing would be done to kind of capitalize off of that. And you need to know if you've got a player that's good on your team, or if you've got a player who's just aggressive on your team, which is fine. If they are getting that first kill, don't be way back on the map, hard scoping somewhere else. Don't be really far away from them, or don't be worried about special ammo or something like that. You need to get over there, make sure you guys are, converging on the same spot. It's like when a defense makes a tackle in football, there's one guy that hits the running back, but that running back will keep pushing, so the other team just sort of like falls on top of him. Mm-hmm. And that's what you need to do, is just like fall on top of your teammates, and like everyone just come down on this dead body, because you know that they are wanting that res. And if you can deny them of that, or if you catch them in the middle of it and you just get another double kill, it's perfect. So just never give up. Don't assume that, because you've got a kill, it means anything. It's really crucial to follow up.
I would say one thing along those lines that kind of goes the other direction. You mentioned having multiple people watching ghosts. A part of trials is doing, if you're running a sniper, is doing the hard scope. And you don't always want to be hard scoped. You always want to check your radar. But when you're watching that ghost, you want to be in position. So if someone rushes past with a fast revive and gets them up, that you're ready to take the shot. And that's something you can communicate with your teammates. If you've got that ghost locked down, you want to make sure your teammates know about it so they can move into position, or maybe they can watch the same spot but try and pick the person who runs past. But most importantly, that they can be sure to stay out of your sight line. Mm-hmm. I know there's some times where I'm watching the ghost and I'm ready to go, and then somebody crossed through my path, and it was like, oh well, I probably should have told them what I was doing, so they they were more wary of this line that I'm trying to keep open. So that's part of communication. That's kind of a call out as much as when you encounter the enemy, is letting your teammates know what you're doing.
On that note, I think one of the other things you need to be doing in trials, I think we mentioned it last week, is if you do die, utilize that time to let the people that are alive know what you can possibly figure out. You get that little red the tracer around the guy that killed you, and it's the perfect time to give your last man standing, like Bones, an advantage that no one else on the map has, which is like eyes in the sky. So if he needs to take on that 3v1, you want to keep it simple, but like if that person's about to turn the corner, you can give him the perfect time to just sit there and hard scope the angle and just be like, all right, he's coming around the corner, 3, 2, and then you could give him the exact moment that he's going to need to make that snipe. It makes all the difference in a game that's so tight and gets competitive.
Having seen that in particular in action, where you were doing the countdown, I usually go, all right, he's moving through the door, all right, he's going around the corner. I mean, that can be almost too much information, and have it boiled down to, all right, you know where he's coming from. It's just going to be in 3, 2, 1, and then to immediately see Bones get the pick at the right moment. That really spoke to like the level of communication, the experience that you guys had in that situation of being helpful and making good call outs, which isn't to say every single possible call out that could pops into your head.
There's a really good video of that last word gameplay from Trials.
Fantastic play. Fantastic.
Oh, amazing. 9 kills, last word in Shade Step.
And not just the gunplay in that video, but the call outs from his teammate it enhanced that almost like tenfold, because he's getting the right call outs and he's letting them know where everyone he can possibly see is on the map and what they're doing, and he's doing it in a very succinct manner.
As the guy who gets a lot of kills, that's my dream call outs to have in my ear. And as the guy who kind of gets a little too fired up in trials, that is what I aspire to be. Just such clear, calm, and direct call outs. He didn't need to panic or yell or get his teammate worried. His teammates got enough to think about. He was just narrating exactly what was happening. And that was, some of the best teamwork I've ever seen recorded in Destiny.
All right. Well, Guys, we've got Trials again coming up next week, and we're going to talk about it. But we should probably share some of our Bungie experience, because it was out of this world. It was just amazing.
So let's set this up a little bit. We got the extreme pleasure of traveling to Seattle. They said, "Come on down if you'd like." Of course, we'd like to, and we got to hang out with some Crucible developers. The guys who design the maps, the guys who control the sandbox, balance weapons. There's so much to work on for the Crucible. It was just an amazing, eye-opening experience of realizing all of the things they have on their plate at one time. They have a stack of to-do lists just piled to the sky, but they are managing it all at the same time. And we just got to sit down and kind of talk about that. What goes into it? What do they want to accomplish? What are they trying to accomplish now? What have they accomplished that they're proud of or that they want to change? There was just, I don't know, it was incredible. As a player, it was very rewarding to hear that they know of every problem we could have even brought up. There was nothing I could have mentioned where they would go, "Wait, what? What are you talking about? I haven't seen that," because they are just on it. It was very, very cool.
It was even nice to see, like, they essentially had the day off, but they felt so like they wanted to talk about their game. They wanted to talk about what they do at Bungie. So much so that they came and like had a talk with us at lunch, at dinner.
Seeing how many people, must have been probably 20 people throughout the course of the day came in on their day off just to hang out and to share what they love about Destiny was amazing. The one thing I will say that if it wasn't clear already, and I don't say this to flatter them, but the reality is the business of making video games is incredibly complex, and Destiny is at the very top of that scale. It is so complex, you have no idea. But fortunately, the people who are working on it are some of the smartest, most video game knowledgeable experts in the industry, and you would not believe the amount of thought and detail that they put into this game. And it can be very hard to kind of get a sense of just what goes into making these games. Some of these fixes that seem so obvious to us, well, it's not just because it takes time to write code or it takes time to test it, but because the problems are so complex. We got a little sense of that talking to Noosk, where he says, as soon as you fix one thing, something crops up over here. You see a little bug and it seems simple, but there's actually a much larger picture underneath. And I was just blown away being surrounded by so many smart people in one room, maybe a little intimidated, but just a blast to talk to them and sort of pick their brains a bit.
And the cool thing is, we're not just going to be Bungie fanboys and tell you how much fun we had and brag about it. We brought our little recorder.
Oh, yeah.
If you've been listening to us since the episode where we covered the Red Bull tournament, we got to go down to Santa Monica and hook up with Triple and Fizz and Clout and talk to them. And we decided to do the same thing. We're like, let's bring back some information that can help our listeners get better at the Crucible. So what we have today is a series of recordings, and of course these take place in restaurants and loud spaces. So yeah, the audio quality is not the lovely Crucible Radio studio quality you so appreciate, and that I appreciate being kind of an audiophile, and that Birds appreciates being an insane person.
I prefer the term tyrannical control freak, please.
There you go. But we have a few chunks, and we are going to listen to them with you. You're going to hear them straight from the source, and then we'll sort of discuss, break down what we talk about, what they talk about, and give sort of our interpretation and basically how this applies to you as a listener and how this can help you improve your game.
So definitely bear with us here. Put your listening ears on. Some moments you're going to have to really tune in and figure out, like, what are they talking about? But we'll do our best to explain afterwards what we got out of it.
And it's good stuff.
It is great stuff. Put your headphones on. Some of these are in stereo, and so you really get the sense of being in the room if you've got your headphones on. So, of course, we hooked up with our good buddy Noosk.
John
Wisniewski, who took us straight from an expansive diner breakfast to
Chase's Pancake Corral.
Sourdough pancakes. I had sourdough pancakes. That was a new experience for me.
How were they?
Sour. I was thrown by the combination of sourdough with like smushy, delicious pancakes and syrup. That was new for me, but it definitely gave like a nice kick to my breakfast. They had great bacon though. That was top
Oh,
notch.
the bacon. I just had bacon, egg, and toast, and man, it was delicious.
And about 7 cups of coffee between the two of us.
Yeah, the best way to start a long day of talking about Destiny. And of course, we went from that to another place for lunch where we have this recording. These first 2 clips, well, Swain, you kind of saw these two clips covered. You probably knew that you were in store for some of this.
Well, definitely, Noose gave me a bunch of guff on the Twitter for my ratings of Telesto and Fabian's strategy from our exotic review guide. He felt that I didn't give them their fair shake, so we talked to him a little bit about their intended use.
It fires the same amount of projectiles as a normal fusion rifle. Those projectiles just attach to whatever they hit and then detonate. When they hit, there's a small amount of damage that hits on the impact, and then the remaining damage per projectile is then detonates a couple frames later. So it's not even a full second. I don't think it's about average of quarter to 3/4 of a second random time in there. But basically, it's going to do the full damage of a fusion rifle, but it gets spread out over an area of effect. Now there is fall off on each one of those little explosions, so to get the full damage, you have to be really close, or have them attached to you.
So is the damage capable, by the attached fusion rifle pellet or whatever? Is that always unchanged? Because I know that the impact damage is affected by range and that sort of thing. So you can't shoot someone from far away and have it hit just as hard. But do the stickies remain strong at whatever range?
The detonation is going to do. There's no damage fall off on the detonation as far as where you were compared to where they landed. There's no distance between. No fall off in that distance. There is fall off from how close the target was to the source of the detonation.
We got a chance to play a little Destiny with Noosk, and he was rocking the Telesto and showing us how it was done. And what I realized is that he was using Telesto in really the hyper-defensive way that Pocket Infinity used to be used for. He would just shut down hallways with it. He would just spam it and make sure that if you went into this hallway, you were running through a steady stream of Telesto rounds going off. The other thing I learned is that when you play with Telesto, every time you land a kill with Telesto, you have to go, Telesto!
Telesto!
And it was remarkably effective. It was just a totally different kind of secondary weapon. He wasn't sniping with it. He wasn't pushing with it. He was playing zone control by letting the Telesto set timed explosives in whatever area of the map he chose.
Telesto is a team shot beast. If you're going up against a room, if you know the whole room in front of you is filled with enemies, you can just toss it into the room. You don't even really have to get it in the right spots, but it can just clean up those kills. You just get these really nice team shot going. Yeah, it's definitely situational. It's a defensive gun. I could see it being great for small maps, but apparently I keep getting put on very, very large maps whenever I play with Telesto.
I think the important thing to remember is that those projectiles, the stickies, they do the same amount of damage no matter how far you shot them from. So if you are kind of just tossing them over there, you're not going to get a kill from that initial impact, and you're not going to land all of them on a target because of the spread, but they will still explode and do just as much damage, which makes me think it's pretty viable for something like Control if people are just being dummies and sitting on the control point, or anything with reviving. I mean, if you want to put them down on that dead ghost, they can't walk over there. Like you said, it's a shutdown kind of gun, and assists are still good. Do not think you're doing a bad job if you're getting assists in the Crucible. They are a valuable stat.
Oh, for sure.
So now we got to talk about the Titan exclusive Fabian strategy. Now, a few people kind of thought this was bugged. They didn't really get how the perks worked, but we've got John Wisniewski here to tell us why we're all wrong for using this gun the way we use it, which turns out to be kind of a trend when you look at how Crucible Radio plays exotics. So let's tune in.
So, Fabian's strategy, was it Frontlines perk? It does the same thing that the Slaylock does, where it increases your rate of fire without reducing the damage. Do you remember how rate of fire and impact are always on the seesaw?
Yeah.
So for Slaylock, we were I was like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna increase your rate of fire, but I'm not gonna reduce your damage. Like that's just gonna be the bonus.
Yeah.
That's really easy to do on a scout rifle because it's so long between fires.
Yeah.
Fabian's strategy is an auto rifle, and so you have like literally just frames between each round coming.
Yeah.
So to shave time off of that, you're talking about like fractions of frames.
Yeah.
So over the course of a match, you're saving a handful of frames.
Okay.
So it does fire faster, but it's really fucking hard to notice. But where it is going to win is if you're going head to head with another auto rifle, you're going to get more rounds out and you're going to kill that guy. Assuming you're not off target, you're not missing shots. But if you're that close with that perk active and that stability buff that you get from that perk, you basically have to try to not hit that, right? So, like you get up close, the perk activates, you get more stability, and then over the course of the mag, you're going to get more rounds out over another guy. So you will win versus another auto rifle. And that was the whole design of that perk. When it released, like a lot of people just they couldn't feel it. Like there's no like visceral emotional response to it. It's just like I don't think it's working. You shipped a broken perk. What the fuck?
Well, I don't think it was like broken. I just thought it was just like it's small. Like,
well, so let's say I wanted to make a YouTube video where I demoed the Fabian strategy perk in action. What is the situation I should put myself in to show off that behavior?
So it activates when you're within a certain distance that we call close range of an enemy. And that's, I believe that is based on the radar, so your PIDAR.
Okay, yeah.
Like when you go from the gutter to close up.
Yeah.
That's when that perk kicks in. It's going to activate. And so we give you a stability boost. You shave off your rate of fire, and then you increase your handling as well, so you can go in and out of ADS.
Basically, you just need to like get aggressive and get in on someone first.
The whole like emotional goal of that perk was to like force Titans to like get into that close range. And they feel like they're like that's what we always want Titans to do. Is just like you are the guy who's like kicking down the front door and running into the room like.
They just get a little
setting
bit
down the first layer of fire while everyone else is behind you. Yeah.
Well, all right. That was eye-opening for me, at least. Especially the part that he defines how they see Titans as the guy that runs through the door, kicks it down, and gets close, gets in your face. It definitely is sticking with me. It's one of those things that I'm looking at my build right now, and I'm just like, man, do I need to increase like my perks? Do I need to move things around? Do I need to just like, should I move a little bit slower to sacrifice for recovery and armor? Because I want to get in close. I want to get in close, and I want to be the guy that's using that Fabian strategy up close. Like they said, like, what is it, like 8 meters? You have to be right there to get that perk to activate and to get those kills really quick. He says that it's the best going up against other auto rifles. You'll always win against other auto rifles. I'm just worried I'm going to be way too close for someone to one-shot me with a shotgun right now. But I'm going to keep trying at it, keep getting close, play with my build a little bit, because it was nice hearing that the way they define Titans.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a map-dependent thing and really a game mode-dependent thing. I mean, that kind of strategy is completely viable if you're playing on, a close quarters map like, Sector 618 in something like Clash or Control or Drifter, because one, if you die and you go up against the shotgun and you do get taken out, well, okay, I mean you're not playing a revive playlist, it's not a big deal. But I definitely was running into some Titans this week who are just in casual play, who are making very good use of auto rifles, both the Fabian and the Zalo Supercell. And there's a great synergy with the Titan skate where you're able to just push in very, very quickly. It's a difficult thing to track if they can be sort of hyper aggressive while managing to not just come straight at you. I think this gun deserves another look. It absolutely has an effect. There's no bug there. That much is clear.
It was interesting to hear about the frames issue as well, how the rate of fire would split frames, which is, I don't know, kind of a paradox in as far as visuals go. And that was something that came up in our interview with X-Trooper about his massive spreadsheet about time to kill. I mean, sometimes these things come down to such precision measurements that it is tough to feel. And I do want every exotic to have a feel, a visceral experience that you have with that gun. But sometimes you just got to trust the math, and that's kind of tough for me to do but it's something I need to work on.
Yeah, I think the going back to what you said, Birds, the skating Titan, the really fast moving Titan, might be on par with year one Blink at some point if it keeps if the guns around it keep evolving like they are. I think it'll be pretty damn good.
Well, it wouldn't be a conversation with John Wisniewski if we didn't try and find out some juicy details on how all of those stat bars work. And one of the questions that we talked about had to do with handling. You know, that's one of those sort of magic words. You'll see a scope improves handling. That's sort of the secret sauce with the reflex scope that we love so much. And we asked Nusk about it, and he told us this.
Yeah, so handling is your stow time, your equip time. So stow is when you're putting it away, and equip is when you're swapping to it. It comes up, and then it's your time to in and out of ADS. Yeah, but it does not affect your reloads. Reload is its own thing.
Well, so is handling part of one of the complex stats that we do get displayed, or is that a hidden value?
No, it's not shown to be.
I mean, because so we get like a handling value from like the data mine stuff in the API. Like I can look up and I can see, not like the others, has got better handling than Treads Upon Stars.
It's faster. We used to call it lightweight, or like it's like
So that is something I can look at on like db.planetdestiny.com. Is there a place in game that I can go to say this gun is faster than this gun?
Unfortunately, no.
You know, I think for a lot of us, this wasn't necessarily new information. We know that there's a lot going on. And actually, if you spend some time on the playbook, you've seen that there's really been a lot of breakdown as to just how handling works. And, you know, snapshot and quick draw and injection mold, they all affect handling. But what exactly do they affect? So I would advise anyone who really wants to take sort of the scientific approach to looking at guns to really use a resource like the one at Planet Destiny. If you go to db.planetdestiny.com, you'll see every gun listed with not just the core stats, but some of these hidden stats like handling. But in talking with them, one thing became clear, which is that whether you take the scientific approach or you just play with the guns and you see what feels good for you, you know, when you've got a quick ADS speed that works for your play style, you're able to quickly scope and track targets. That's the gun that you want to use. And that information is available if you want to go looking for it. But it's really all about the feel at the end of the day. And that's just something you really get only in game when you actually test it out and you see if it's ADSing, if you're able to swap to it at the speed you want to do.
This kind of validated my whole thing where I've been really talking about my scout rifle all these weeks. But handling is big, and this is a thing where it made me realize that the perk Last Resort is just a must-have for me personally. But Last Resort on, say, a sniper rifle, like 1,000 Yard Stare that Swain and I both use from the Quest, this is giving me quick draw and snapshot whenever I'm the last man standing. So in Trials, I have this super sniper if I'm playing down two teammates. You know, I have a thing that can scope as fast as anything with those perks, but I still got my other two perks to work with. So that makes my scout feel all the more valuable. But, you know, on quick draw and handling speed and that kind of thing, I have a very common habit where I hit a body shot with a sniper. I'm not afraid to pull that shot from 5 point blank meters out, and then I switch to my primary and finish it off. And people know about this. This is not a revolutionary thing. But with a gun that has strong handling, you have this lightweight feel that allows you to flip it out faster and aim down sights faster and all those things, which makes that more valuable than, say, some Godroll Nerwin's Mercy or Vendor Hawksaw or any of those pulses that we all consider to be the dominant meta. A gun that's fast, like mine, not like the others, is as valuable, if not more, than any, you know, pulse rifle in this game. So that was a very cool confirmation to get.
Yeah, handling is just one of those big stats that you just can't really explain with numbers all that well. So I urge everyone to just get out there and try it out. You know, feel it for what you want.
Speaking of stats that are tough to explain, we've got a few conversations about that.
Let's just let this one speak for itself. This is a very useful tip coming up next from John Wisniewski.
This is just a word of advice. Like, if you're ever expecting stats on a weapon, always do it in game. Never do it in orbit, because In orbit, your gun doesn't exist, right? So some of those stats require an actual gun for the for the perk to go, okay, what am I doing here? Like the user's requesting information from this perk, like here's what I'm going to display, and then it looks to the gun, it's like, okay gun, tell me what to show them, and then there's no gun because you're in orbit, it's not loaded, and then so it's like, I don't know, show them something. It's like, this is where magazine is usually the one that suffers from this the most. Like anytime you're seeing your magazine go up or down and you don't actually see a change in the UI, make sure you're actually in game.
So Noosk said it best, and also I'm just counting how many times we've said Noosk, and I know he's going to be like, oh yeah, we're on Noosk terms, huh? But that's really informative. I mean, I have the same issue on my scout rifle. All right, Bones, shut up about your scout rifle. But I've got braced frame, which takes down the mag size down to 13, but it doesn't show me in game. I just sort of wait and see, like, well, I'm going to drop into a Crucible match and see what happens. So there you go. Equip your weapons in game, test those perks out. Don't let what they tell you in orbit be the final statement. On to more confusing things. We've got something called fruit space.
So you might have heard in one of those clips, we weren't just talking to Noose. We had a table full of people, and in them, you heard a comment from my new favorite person in general, Sage Merrill. This guy, Noose has described him as his gameplay guru. Such a smart guy and really understands these things. This term fruit space, which I will let him explain, is a term of his own creation, but it really gave me some of the insight into the stat bars that explains quite a bit. Let's just get right to it.
Oh my God, those detail screens are such a pain in the ass. So
yeah, I can see it.
Here's the thing that people love to know, but it's like, so they probably know, or they've probably already figured out. I haven't trolled enough to see troll the forums. So the stats are displayed on the detail screen are like this crushed amalgamation of a bunch of information. Plus, we're trying to put all the guns into the same, I call it fruit space, because you're trying to compare apples to oranges, right? And so you're like, okay, if I want to compare this apple to this orange, if I want to compare this sniper rifle to this fusion rifle, like how I have to put them both in the same, I have to put them in the fruit space, right? And so what the range stat shows is like the total possible of like the entire, all the weapons. So in fact, you can have a perk that moves the viable range of a fusion rifle by 20%, and it won't appear to move that bar at all because it's showing the entire range, including sniper rifles, so it's massive.
Right, yeah.
Right? And we did that early on because we wanted, not on the detail screen, but on the screen above, in your character, when you're trying to pick your gun, and people were just learning, like, you know, they don't have 500 hours in the game, they have 5 hours in the game, and they're trying to learn, like, well, which of these, what do I want? Do I want this gun or that gun? We wanted you to be able to compare sniper rifles to fusion rifles or whatever, and it has been a request, and like we will try to make that better, where when you go into the detail screen, it just shows you the stats relative to your own fruit, only apples, right, instead of oranges or whatever.
Yeah. Or it knows, right? Like we wanted to know. It's like, okay, right now I'm comparing a hand cannon to an auto rifle. So show me the difference between those two guns. Now I'm comparing my hand cannon to another hand cannon. So redisplay those differences.
This is on the character screen above. So when you when you hold the trigger and it says show me the difference between these two, it's like it could say here are the two like stats independent of each other. Oh, you want to look at the fusion rifle versus the sniper rifle? Okay, we move them both into fruit space. Here they are relative to each other, right?
This was such an eye-opener because, you know, sometimes these stat bars, it seems like you notice changes with the gun, but you don't see any difference. You know, something like, you know, aggressive ballistics, and you know you're getting more damage. You can see the numbers are larger, but you don't see a change in those bars. And I think a really good example is people discovered that there's really different archetypes for the sidearms, and yet the bars appear to be the same. And the reason for that is that in order to make sort of to make those sidearms make sense in the context of all guns, they had to take all of this range within the weapon and squash it down into a little space. So even though there is going to be a difference between them, you're not going to be able to see that difference because the entire range in which all the stats exist for something like sidearms has been compressed into this very small part of a universal scale that goes all the way from, absolute close quarter shotgun range to long distance sniper range.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It is tough to look at those bars and then, like, oh, I put this perk on. Why am I not seeing a concrete, move in my, range bar or my reload speed? It's just like, it's refreshing to know that it's in the background, it's changing, but it's still tough, not being able to see that visual.
I would encourage anyone to just think a little bit about this problem and just how complex it is to come up with a good universal situation for a problem like this. And then imagine that every single thing that Bungie works on in Destiny is as complex as this problem right here. It gives you a sense of just how impressive Destiny is as a whole that they've pulled off.
Video games, they're hard to make.
They are hard to make. Don't you ever forget it.
But on the fun side of making video games, we met two guys, players, Bungie dudes, that were super awesome to hang out with. But on top of that, they talk about maps. And this was a whole new world that we haven't really gotten to discuss in depth on Crucible Radio. But the world of designing the maps that we play every day is really fascinating and really interesting to me on both a competitive and like an artistic level. So we talked to Adam and Cooley, two awesome dudes, about map design. So let's hear what they have to say.
So I think one thing that we do that I really appreciate and I think gives us a little bit of an edge is that we think really critically about what sort of forms are in the space and how it can make sense to the player. First and foremost, like we want to be able to let the player read the space like a book. Like they should be able to look at it and say, oh, this route's going to take me to maybe a more of a choke point type gameplay experience, and this route's going to be more open. It's a covered field. There's open air. I can jump around and use my movement. And sometimes we can fit those spaces into a believable place. Another way to do it is to sort of just make a gray box, just an entire level out of mass out geometry. It has no textures or detail, and then an artist comes in, paints over top of it, and it's like, adds detail and whatever, and then a finishing artist comes in and literally just implements the concept art into the level, and that can sometimes have a little bit less a compelling feel. It feels like a decorated box land.
Right. So there's,
the beauty of the Vex palette, by the way.
Right. Vex is so much fun to work with. It's just like giant blocks.
Right. Yeah. We're just gonna put a spire here. Hundreds and hundreds of spires to choose from.
Well, we can't have players getting on this. We need to make it a spire.
Yeah.
So can we put a laser beam here?
Spire on it. Well, I feel like
it's kind of like putting a bird on it, except it's a spire.
Yeah. Stack spire on it. Well, I feel like Memento is a good example of what you're talking about. It feels like a place that has collapsed through inattention. Yeah. Right? Like when I'm climbing up to that sniper crossover B, like I'm climbing up rubble. Yeah. And that is not the kind of thing that seems like it could happen unless you had designed it with that in mind.
Memento's a really unique little butterfly in that aspect. It's a human palette, which is always, like I said before, gives great flexibility with theming and understanding of the space. But it was also designed from the ground up with that in mind. It was also designed in conjunction with our what we call our palette team, which is a team of really talented artists that create all of the modular assets that we use to construct additional levels from. So when they build new stuff from scratch,
to fit the space.
So our level design and art lead, Nick Buckmiller, did a sort of gray box mass out of that level, and he can tell you how that process went because the story's funny. And then he worked in conjunction with that palette team. He basically gave them a level that was just white boxes and said, use this design to drive the creation of a palette. And that's where the European Dead Zone palette actually came from, was that map.
So I have to say, I just can't wait until we have Cooley and Adam join us on the show. We talked about so much, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. We kind of got to hear the origin story of Widow's Court and Memento as new additions to Destiny. But there was so much more they talked about, and a lot of just sort of how you build a map. How do we decide where to place cover? How do we decide where the sniper lanes are going to be? What happens if we build this cool asymmetrical map and it's unbalanced? How do we fix it? What are the different tools in our toolkit? How do we handle elevation changes and different routes we can take through an area? These guys were so knowledgeable and had a funny story for every map that I asked them about. I can't wait until we get a chance to talk to them in detail about all the work and the thought and the iteration that goes into these Destiny PvP maps.
It's funny because me and Bones were at the other end of the table, so it's nice. I didn't get to hear this conversation until we got back.
This next clip actually was a conversation I got to have at my end of the table, which I'm just going to go ahead and call the cool kids end of the table.
All right.
I got to hang out with Deej.
Well, okay, that's not bad. With Claude Jerome, and you saw him on the subclass reveal for the Taken King, and our community manager Eric Osborne, talking about the Sunbreaker class.
Dun dun. Wait, did you hear that?
Run!
Sunbreaker, totally OP, am I right?
He's something. He's something. He's definitely a little. He definitely has a really strong. He's really readable, and everybody knows when he's doing his thing. So I think it's all eyes on him when he's doing his thing. So there's a really strong perception that he's really, really.
It's like when I go Radiance to Sunbreaker, everybody runs. And immediately like, oh my god, run away!
You hear the hammer. Everybody knows what's going on. Everything attention to him. It's all eyes on him. I think, we'll see how we respond to the data and what people are saying about him, but definitely the perception seems like he's really hot.
I mean, I think one of the
No pun intended.
I don't know what slipped by me. Incredibly solid. I mean, I feel like going into trials, a lot of people were worried that Sunbreaker was going to dominate, but it's like, it is such a sixes super. Like, it requires plenty of people to feed you kills to keep the cauterize up.
Yep, I think the 3v3 helps a lot. You can avoid it, you can run, right? The 6v6 mode, you're going to get crushed, right?
Well, I mean, and on anything but the smallest maps, you have plenty of places off radar to hide from wherever you hear the taunts.
And I think to Claude's point, everybody knows when you pop it, right? It's such a good audio cue, and everybody just kind of gets out of the way. So
yeah, and I've definitely encountered a lot of players in the WoW that are like starting to get really good at countering them, like learning how to play with them in close range and like kind of dodge his hammers and make it hard for him to hit his hammers. So that if you go down, you'll still waste like 2 or 3. Yeah, I'm starting to see that a lot too. So.
Yeah, the Trials meta is very unique too because people only pop, they're popping supers at very specific moments in time, right? Mm-hmm. So it's less effective than you would in a normal Crucible match. You might get 3 or 4 going, right? In Trials, you're like the economy of supers is very different.
Yeah, I actually really like running Striker in Trials for that reason. Like those panic supers are huge.
A lot of what they say rings true, and we're finding it in Trials, and we're finding it in sixes. And I think I said it a little while ago. The Sunbreaker that audio cue is key, depending on what playlist you're in. So if you're in sixes, you're like, oh, we're all gonna die. And if you're at threes, you're kind of like, all right, I got a chance to outrun this guy. I found it a few times in Trials this weekend where I'd pop my super and they would just be gone. And it's like, oh, all right, well, I'm not getting a kill with my super this time. Those were the clever teams. Those were the teams that heard it and were able to, well, they probably anticipated it too. Like once you start getting up in the rounds and you get like 4, up to like round 4, and you're like, all right, well, that team has their super. They're going to be, I'm going to be ready for that Titan. I was talking to Bones about this over the weekend. I felt as though I may even want to change my loadout for Sunbreaker just for Trials.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like just you could use that mind game, the tongue, to get people to react to you a certain way. So I think I'm leading up into Trials this weekend. I may try a little bit different. I may try to do some sunspot work. Throw one down in front of me, find an advantageous position on the map, and just stand there and let my team flush them out. If they can flush them out and I can get to where they are quick, that sunspot's going to be key to just like keeping it up. And I feel like in threes, I can sacrifice cauterize for something like the one that makes it last longer if you're standing in a sunspot.
I think you're onto something there. I think it's definitely something that changes in threes and changes in trials. There's definitely no guarantee that your Sunbreaker gives you a wrecking ball. I mean, look, I'm no dummy. I've got a Titan that only has his Sunbreaker subclass leveled up. But it didn't just give me free kills in trials because we played a ticket and I realized I was like, hey, everyone come back here. And it's definitely something that can be countered and avoided. And, you might get a revive out of it if they run away from you, but you used a super. Hopefully there's some benefit to it. Doesn't mean everyone just gets an even fight. That's what supers are for. So I liked their thoughts on that. I don't think subclasses are perfect by any means, but hey, there's ways to win against those pesky Sunbreakers.
Well, all that being said, one thing is clear. Deej has mentioned it in the update. Claude was doing a very good job of keeping his cards close to the vest. But the Sunbreaker, Super, and the class as a whole it is something that they're looking very closely at. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some changes coming down the road.
So at the other end of the table, the lame kids table, as Birds would say.
I was going to say that. Thank you for doing the work for me.
We had some very informative conversations with a few other designers. One in particular, Leif Johansson. This guy is a multiplayer designer. He asked us about game modes, competitiveness, but he's got real insight when it comes to being a player and how to be a good player. So we had some awesome conversations. This first one about ADS tracker literacy. Check this out.
So the aim down sight literacy, you watch low skill players, they'll wait for the engagement to start, and you'll have two players, and the lower skill player will start their ADS during the engagement, as opposed to already being an ADS to start the fight. So they get a few bullets. They're a few bullets behind, and they have to make a play to catch up. It's just not going to happen. It's consistently not going to happen. And worse, they get tilty. They start sprinting around, and then they're even sloppier. There's even that many frames between when they're giving their opponent first shot and when they actually start putting ADS shots on the other guy. And that's not a Twitch skill to know. Make sure when you fire your first bullet, you're aim down sight, and the other guy's going to fire. You're going to win that engagement more often than you're not. So if you disengage, you start engagements in ADS and get first shot, and you've got enough tracker literacy to realize your situational awareness, you're not getting screwed. A lot of mid-skill players, their tracker literacy is they don't even look at it. It's freaking crazy. They'll run in with a full tracker red with blinking lights looking in the wrong direction. And the thing is, a lot of first-person shooter skills get smashed in that situation because they're used to being good in other games, and they don't realize that the tracker is, I don't say it's everything, but it's you can compensate for so much Twitch skill by just having good tracker literacy. A lot of great COD players, they know how to use red dots on the minimap combined with footstep noise, combined with map knowledge, that you've given them so much information, they'll start an ADS before they've even seen you, and you run into their reticle. The tracker's like that, but twice as much because it's more information. If you know how to read it correctly, the gun's always going to be in the right place, you're going to be well positioned. On top of that, I see a lot of low-skill players rush into situations where a higher skill player knows that their position is way too predictable if their opponent's looking at their tracker. That they're just if it's a long, tight hallway and there's only one approach, if there's any reasonable time for your opponent to get tracker noise, and you're freaking running down that thing, their gun's going to be perfectly placed 9 times out of 10 unless they're total noobs. And a lot of the lessons that the low-skill players walk away from is that guy was really good. Wow, he freaking knew I was coming, turned, last split second put his gun on me. It's they don't realize he planted his feet, had his freaking gun waiting, and had his head already highlighted when he came around that corner, and it just feels like he got killed really fast.
Shout out to Javier in the background of every single clip.
Oh man, Javier was getting nice and toasty at a certain point in the evening. Yeah, Javier, I think we'll have you come on the show at some point in the future, and you can tell us just what you were so excited about at the time.
Special ammo.
But oh man, when I got to hear these clips from the other side of the table, so many things just clicked in my head because hearing him talk like, I'm not the best Twitch player in the world, but to hear him talk about just the other skills and to know like, well, when I do really well, it's because I'm making use of these things. It's just so many sort of components of smart gameplay just fell into place for me hearing him talk about this.
Well, right around the time that Swain dropped a fork, Leaf brought up a very interesting topic, which is the reaction time of aiming down sights first when you're fighting someone. And we say this word hard scoping all the time, and I hate it because we always say like, don't hard scope. And we're going to get to that too, but it's just like, you've got to be ready. And you don't want to just be scoped all the time so you can't see your radar, but that doesn't mean just be on the reactive side every single time. You can still be ready and come back with an attack if someone is approaching you from around the corner. And that's the best way to beat someone and throw someone off, is be coming at them and ready to kill them first. Don't just get in this backup stage like, well, I don't know what to do because I'm getting attacked.
One of the things that plays into that advice, pre-firing. It's just wait. That person's going to be coming around that corner. Just lay down some fire like around that corner. One, they'll walk right into it, or two, they won't, which is almost always is equally good. You're keeping them off you. They're going to be like, oh, there's way too much stuff going on over there, I'm going to back up. Or they'll try and engage, and if they engage, you get those first shots on them, and those are valuable when you're doing that.
when you're shooting at something that's not there, and then a guardian steps out and puts their face in your bullets, that is satisfying. That's a good way to get a kill.
Another thing, Leaf, he showed us a video on his phone. He was just showing us like him utilizing a map, and watching him use the map to its advantage kind of blew my mind. It was like on Widow's Court. He kind of just gets in this position where I never thought of it this way, but he's using the radar as part of his arsenal, and he's putting himself in a spot where the other team has no clue where he is. They're getting that radar ping. They're getting the red up in their little pie chart, and they know he's down there, but they don't know what side he's coming from or where he's approaching. And he was putting himself in certain angles that I was just like, wow, I never would approach from that angle. It's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, the dude knows his maps, and there's a way to learn those things that gives you an advantage in any scenario, even if you feel like you don't have the best map control. But I really want to talk about this thing with hard scoping. So let's check out this next clip from Leaf.
There's a harder to diagnose issue there, I think, though, because I feel like
you don't know that that's
right. And I feel I've heard the term hard scoping gets used, which is I can't totally define it. It's you're scoped for a while. I don't know why that's hard scoping really, but they say don't do that because you need to keep your wits about you. Keep your radar up and pay attention.
If you trust your teammates, you've got good map knowledge. It's not a bad play because those dudes will wander in your sights. You look at their shot, you will burn that dude down. It's just. In COD, it's actually more important to stay scoped out than Destiny. Destiny, staying scoped in is more valuable, especially
when you have the perks, so you can still have your tracker on when you're ADS.
The playtests I go to, it's all testers, and those guys will all Twitch me in symmetric fights. If I get first shot, it gives me a neutralizer for their faster jump skill.
See, this is one of those things that's just like this. I understand it on some unconscious level. This was floating around in my head, and to hear him say it, one thing he points out is that it's so key to get that first shot off. And that requires being prepared, knowing where they're going to come from, and catching them off guard. But the moment you get that first shot, and look, with any gun, if you land the first shot, you're going to do some damage and you're already at an advantage. But you're going to put them into tilt mode, and you're going to flinch them and stagger them, especially if you're using a pulse rifle or a gun like Mida that's got a lot of flinch. That if you can start the fight on your terms, it's almost a done deal. As long as you can just maintain your aim from that point, you really have a chance to really end the fight in your favor before, for them, it's even begun. And I never really thought about it. I guess I always figure out, well, they'll come around and then I'll scope right in and get them. But to be scoped already when I'm 100% positive that they're going to do some predictable action and I'm ready to land that first hit on them and just clean it up from there. It's not revolutionary, but the difference that it makes is just apparent.
This kind of comes into play as you're improving. I think if you're at a beginner level, you do want to avoid hard scoping because you want to be on your game with awareness, and awareness is crucial. If you feel like you're dying while you're scoped in from someone on the left, then yeah, you do need to worry about staying aimed down sights. But we talk so much about that, or I feel like it's such a common critique, like, hey, you aim too much, that I stopped doing it. And nothing is worse than letting someone get the jump on you from a doorway that you just had your scope on because you're trying to check your radar. So sometimes you just have to trust it and say, like, look, this is the most important thing right now. There might be someone on my radar to the right. They might be in a different room, whatever. Get that kill, then adjust, move into position, and now check your sights and stuff like that. And that was so crucial in trials when you are just trying to play survival and you got to be on your toes at every second. So that was a really fun discussion for me.
Yeah, like that advanced level map knowledge, it really is a bit of expertise because you have to understand the map so well. You have to understand spawns. You need to understand how people normally think in situations. But especially if you're playing something like Threes, it is entirely possible that without even looking at your radar, you know where every enemy player is. You know that your back is safe because you know where your teammates are. You know what angles they're covering. You're doing callouts. You've got that communication up. And so you can really, out of all the possible places enemies could be coming out, you can use that information to just narrow down the possibilities to the point where you have some confidence staying scoped in. And that's a very different thing from, just going up to the top lane on Pantheon and being like, oh, well, this is a good place to scope it. I'm just going to stay scoped here because you do have angles behind you. Maybe if you know your team is working with you, that's an option. But that's a very different scenario.
We continue to talk to Leaf a little bit about the advanced mechanics and what goes into the difference between someone who's getting real sweaty in the Crucible and just casual play. So this applies to pretty much all of our player base.
Let's have a listen.
I like the new matchmaking when you're going into like, all right, this is the semifinals, and then you're like, this is the final game. Like both these teams are
it matters.
Are
Every
here.
single match like we did, I'd have to like put my controller down and be like,
yeah.
I mean, it's 2 different games. Like, a lot of players will brag about their KD, but if their KD is exaggerated, that's not actually that predictive of how they'll perform in a tightly high-skill match, teamwork-centric play where a dude with a 1.2 KD is a fucking monster. Like, you show up to those matches, somebody walks out with 1.2 KD against like top-tier talent, that's pretty impressive. But people are like, oh my god, I have like 6 KDs. I'm like, you're learning so many bad habits, basically, if you're playing that well. If you watch them, too, they play super loose. Anyone that gets, like, 6 KDs consistently, they're rushing into 2v1s. They're never disengaging. They're ADSing in the middle of the fight. They're, like, basically throwing grenades wild, like, in the middle. Like, they're just trying to hit freaking, like, mad, like, gunslinger plays. And that's not what you would do if you were playing against triple rack. They'd fucking laugh at you. Like, you're basically taking on so much debt by playing that loose that you're gonna have such a hard time giving it back to playing tight again.
But you have to admit, it's pretty fun to do that.
It's a great YouTube video, but it doesn't mean that you're fucking great.
So this is definitely something I've experienced. Part of it is just because I play a ton of Rumble. This last week, sort of inspired by that Last Word clip that we watched, I pulled out my Last Word and was in Rumble. And the Last Word, if you're using it truly as your primary, it encourages you to do crazy stuff. I was jumping around through the air. I'd charge at people, but I'd hop to the left and to the right. And, I've got that hip fire accuracy and they don't. And doing really well, winning a lot of Rumbles. But at the same time, I'm realizing, like, this could never fly in a Trials match. I would get splattered in a Trials match. And I think that's okay. I think those are two different scenarios, and playing control and playing elimination, you should go into them with a different mindset, but really being able to kind of buckle down and say, this is a high pressure situation. I need to play clean. It's so key because on trials, it's about these crazy plays, but a lot of it is just about not making mistakes. And when you're playing loose like that, there's so many opportunities for you to make mistakes like that.
As the player here who went from super casual PvP play to trying to get better to the try hard, get good type of gameplay, I play a lot with Bones now, and I watch him a lot I used to watch him a lot when I was dead. And the things that Bones would go for were like crazy, like these plays. And I think this really lends itself to like, oh, you're going to go into a match, you're going to look at the Destiny Trials report for this match and be like, oh, this guy has a 1.2 KD. Like, he's nothing. Like, we can take him. I've got a 2.0. But I wouldn't underestimate those people. I've gotten a lot better since we've started and since I've actually started to put some progress in it. But my 1.2 KD says a lot about me just trying new things. It doesn't say, like, I put myself in a lot of situations where, I may die, but I'm going to learn something from it. I may get that crazy kill. I may get that play that I'm looking for. But my KD does not reflect how sweaty or how competitive I can get in the moment.
Yeah. This is a topic I will probably talk about for as long as this show goes, but there is just a difference between stepping up when it matters and padding your stats. I got a lot of questions this week actually about people saying like, yo, I could put 8 wins on a ticket, but that last one, and with this new matchmaking, that means those are some clutch rounds at the end. Those are the best of the best. And it is very easy to pad your stats. We've got this thing called Destiny Tracker. What an incredible resource. I've been using it a lot, and I've been noticing my improvements through that. I've been noticing that I'm above 2.0 since The Taken King came out. I can have a sense of pride about that, and that's showing some improvement. But when it comes to trials, that means nothing. It just doesn't. That doesn't imply it's the different game modes. You can go get all these high KD games in control by just hanging out and getting snipes and stuff like that. But just like any sport, it's the 9th inning, someone hits a grand slam or a home run. It's the 2-minute drill, and you've got quarterbacks spinning out of tackles and throwing deep bombs. What
sport are we talking about here?
Physical ones. They're exhausting.
Yeah, I don't care for them.
But that's not practice. That's not a large number of touchdowns thrown. That's not a high batting average. That is just this competitive instinct to perform when it matters. And that's something that's really tough to work on and so hard for me to give advice on. You just got to feel it. And when it happens, it feels amazing. And part of getting there can be pushing yourself. Like Swain just said, I have taken so many close snipes that were just not worth it, trying to get better at taking those hard ones when they matter. And it paid off in trials, and it's still going to pay off, and it's going to help me improve. It's something I'll have to talk about and try to explain further in future episodes because it's going to constantly come up.
Yeah, it's just one of those intangibles. It's like you can't really measure how competitive your opponent is going to be just by looking at numbers on a piece of paper.
Like Leaf said, he knows about other games. He knows about players. He knows about good players in this community. There are people who succeed because they have the mental game for it. And we've talked about that so much, and we can tell you how to control tilt as much as we want. But you've just got to feel it. You've got to say, I'm ready for this. I'm not scared of a strong team. I'm not looking into this guy's KD. I don't care what kind of win streak he is on. I'm going to play my best, and I know if I'm at my best, I can win. And that's just something you'll find. And when you hit it, focus on it, keep it in mind, and bring it back as much as possible.
It wouldn't be a Crucible Radio interview with Bungie if we didn't get you guys a groundbreaking, world-first exclusive.
Here it comes.
So we held Deej, held his feet to the flame. We finally got a secret out of him. He was willing to spill the beans. This is our final clip of the night. Please listen.
the biggest mistake people make in the Crucible is not using their raisin consumables. A lot of people don't know that if you use a raisin consumable at the outset,
it helps your emesis. It's like plus 10 emesis.
Yeah, it buffs your weapon by 20%, and you have 3 characters. Yeah, you can vault those raisin consumables, so you can have 3 of them. So across one match, you can have like 60%. You can have a weapon that's 60%.
Oh, it stacks. You saying? Are you confirming that raisin stack?
The raisin consumable stacks. Absolutely.
Crucible Radio not responsible for any dismantling of raisins.
All right, well, guys, this was only the opening ceremony and a huge number of cool things from Bungie, straight from the mouths of Bungie employees that we've got planned. So expect a lot more coming this way. I think we should probably just give some shout outs to all the cool people we worked with. Of course, big shout out John Wisniewski. Thanks, buddy.
Claude Jerome, our man Irk, everyone knows him. We got Cooley and Adam Williams, they do the maps. Leif Johansson, mastermind of multiplayer.
Cosmo, he's not on the recordings, but he was there.
Cosmo's tons of fun to meet.
Deej.
Sage, his name speaks volumes of what he's capable of. Josh and Grant, they showed up and I had some good conversations with them. There's just a lot of people there who care a lot about this game, and I'm not being hyperbolic.
2 more didn't show up on the recording, but huge thank you. Greg Peng, who's hung out and streamed before and had some very useful insight into fusion rifles that we're going to hope to talk about in the future.
Yep.
And of course, Rob Adams, who set all of this up, made all of this happen, and made us feel very, very welcome. A big thanks to you. Javier, the recordings that we did with you, the music was a little bit loud at that awesome pizza spot. We're going to have to do it again in the future and give you a chance to speak out on the evils of special ammo once and for all. It was amazing. Can't wait to go back. What a trip.
Seattle was cool too. I mean, like, we saw the city, but that's not, no one cares. All right, let's end this.
I saw a sand troll.
Yeah, you saw a sand troll under a bridge. I like how as we're driving away from the airport, it's like torrential end of the world rain. And I just thought to myself, this is good. It's good that they experience this when they come to Seattle. They know what it's like now.
Yeah, what the hell, Seattle? It's supposed to snow in winter, not just dump.
Yeah, LA spoiled by the sun.
It's cold here too.
Let's get out of here, guys.
Crucible Radio out.
That you follow me down and I fall. And I fall for you.
Can't seem to just stay alive in trials anymore? Well, who cares? Crest of Alpha Loopy will bring all your friends right back to life. Why bother getting kills when you can just stay alive? Crest of Alpha Loopy.
Crest of Alpha Loopy for when your trials game is poopy.
Light Beyond Nemesis for when your teammates are fucking up dying, you're going to be stuck reviving.
As always, this has been Crucible Radio, at Crucible Radio on Twitter, Crucible Radio everywhere else. Thanks for listening, guys.